And hello again, everybody. Scott Rossman and Hayden Smith joining you with another edition of 7 Plus Sports Talk. And Hayden, tonight, our subject is the head football coach of the Bay program, Jeremy Brown.
Yeah, Scott, it's been a pretty good last couple of years, honestly, for the Bay High Tornadoes on the football field, but especially last year, Scott. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened last year and obviously how now the team is trying to capitalize on the success that they had with a much different roster.
Coach Brown going into his 5th season, guiding that Tornadoes program, coming off a very good season, as you said, 9-2. That includes a very tough first-round playoff game, playoff loss at home to Godby. They gave up just way too many points. They scored 43, but gave up 56, which abruptly ended their season. Overall, the record for Coach Brown in his first 4 seasons, 26-17. That includes 3 state playoff appearances.
That's got 3 state playoff appearances is nothing to scoff about. Again, Bay has definitely been very solid with Coach Brown at the helm, and now him and his players are working through this summer season per se as they work towards the upcoming 2026 season. Well, they will kick things off on the road at Dothan on August 21st.
Coach Brown, kind enough to sit down, talk to us via Zoom this week as he and his guys put in the work in June and July here. Summer work, rather important summer work. And we started by asking him how important the summer work is and then what he and his coaching staff hope to accomplish with these weeks of summer.
I think that's the main thing in the summer, man. It's just trying to make them, trying to get them to stay connected, connected with each other, connected with the program, connected with us as coaches, and using the football part to get them there. You know what I mean? The weight room and the conditioning and the field work, 7-on-7 lineman camps, stuff like that. Stuff to kind of keep them engaged over the summer. You know what I mean? The kids are so, they can get going 1,000 different directions and we've been blessed. This summer has been one of our better summers attendance wise. We're averaging between about 75 and 80 every day. That's JV and varsity. And so, we're pretty excited about the numbers and the work that they're putting in.
So Hayden, some very good numbers for Coach Brown and his coaching staff there at Bay.
Yeah, without a doubt, that's very awesome to see, especially for the Tornadoes after the success that they saw last year. A lot of these guys willing to come out and try to continue to capitalize on that success that they had last year. And again, that many players coming out twice a week, early in the morning, might we add, which we don't know how Coach Brown is able to do that with kids that age in high school. But Coach Brown and others like him have to be good motivators, like we said, to get these teenagers focused on the hard work and wanting to excel at the highest level, especially in the hot summer sun. And even early in the morning, we asked Coach Brown a little bit about that.
Scott, man, me and you, we've talked about this for a bunch of years. You know what I mean? I think it goes back to just that R word, relationships. You know what I mean? You build relationships with the kids, the coaches build relationships with them, you get to know their families. And, kind of the way we try to get to the families to understand is that, we're providing y'all a pretty good service in the summer. We do it in the mornings. Our incoming freshman parents always love it the first time they hear it because they know, like, man, in the summer, the kids want to stay up. They want to be out with their friends. They want to be doing different things. But when you got to be in the weight room at 8 o'clock, you got a little bit more asked to get into bed at night and rest. You know what I mean? And I think too, success helps with that. When you've seen the success on the field and guys get the chance to go to college and play at the next level and every one of those guys, when they talk to them, they say, man, how important the summer program is. Like that's kind of that really is kind of the foundation of our program is the summer, is building that physical, mental toughness, building the relationships, just building that foundation to play, 4 quarters of tough, hard-nosed football. And the kids have kind of bought into that, going into year 5. Each year it seems to have gotten a little bit better, and this year is really good. This summer's been really good for us.
And again, as you said, Hayden, coaches have to be very good motivators, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Again, watching those videos, I'm not even that old yet, Scott, but man, that hurts my knees to look at all those kids out there doing that weight room work. But again, it's the testament to how they're wanting to get out there and they're wanting to get better.
Again, coming off a 9-2 season, 8-2 regular season, very good regular season for the Bay Tornadoes. And again, kind of a shocking end in that first round playoff loss to Godby. But the spring and the summer work are rather important for Coach Brown and his program because let's face it, Hayden, they lost some really good ball players. Zabion Morgan, the quarterback, MJ Wilkerson, Omari Johnson, TJ Davis. Javar Bowden signed a Division I scholarship as a tight end and receiver. All those guys graduating and moving on. And we talked to Coach Brown about working to replace that kind of talent in the spring and here in the summer.
Correct. Yeah, I think, we lost, our senior class last year, we feel like we lost a ton of quality. You know what I mean? We didn't have 25, 30 seniors, but every senior that we had last year contributed in a really, really special way. Obviously those guys you mentioned, a kid like Camden Hurt, who was a 2-year starter for us on the offensive line. Those guys, are I don't know that you can ever replace replace those guys. This spring was really big for us in those positions. You know what I mean? Especially at the wide receiver position, at running back, quarterback. You're always, when you lose those guys, the flip side of that is we only lost one offensive lineman, which was Camden. And so, we feel like anytime you've got some experience coming back on the offensive line, you're probably a little bit further ahead than maybe you were the year before. We lost some, obviously some really good skill guys, but the one thing about Bay High, and it's the same way when I played there, when I coached against them, and now that I'm the head coach there, like we're never gonna lack in the skill position department. Like we're always gonna have dudes that can run and catch and jump and cover, and you know what I mean. And this summer was big to get those guys to buy into the work part, to the grind part, and that's something that JT, Amari, Zay, TJ, MJ, that's something those guys did. They bought into the summers, and that's why most of those guys are playing at the next level, because they figured out how to work, and that's kind of what this group did in the off season, and through the spring, we felt like we had a really good showing over at South Walton, and we didn't come away with the win, but we had some guys out, and the guys still competed, and we feel pretty good about where we're at right now in this part of the summer.
And Hayden, that's pretty important when you have seniors who are leaders on the team, and then they depart, but they depart with a scholarship in hand. That those younger players, those juniors, sophomores, especially those incoming underclassmen, they notice and say, hey, that's the way those guys did it. And that's the way I need to do it if I want to be one day signing that scholarship offer.
Exactly. They have something to aspire to do by the time their high school career is all said and done. Again, exactly like what Coach Brown said, those guys between Zabion, MJ, Amari, TJ, Javar, and a lot of the other seniors as well. Exactly. They put in a ton of work to be as successful as they were last year, but they also had a lot of time on the field together, which played into them being able to get out of certain situations whenever they were actually playing in some of these games. So again, yeah, without a doubt, that group was special.
And don't discount the fact that Coach Brown, 4 years, those guys all 4 years, they kind of came into the program together, and they put in this same kind of buy-in when Coach Brown, and he brought in a couple of assistants with him, but that coaching staff, hey, here's the way we want to do it. It might not be successful overnight, but in years 2 and 3, and then, of course, year 4, it was very successful with that 8-2 regular season.
Yeah, Scott, and part of the work that they have obviously been doing over the summer and the Tornadoes have been a part of so far are some specialized camps and being able to go out and play certain teams, and some of them even with some contact. So here's what Coach says about that.
Back earlier in the month, we took the offensive linemen over to FAMU for a padded lineman camp. We took our offensive line and defensive line over there, and those guys competed really hard. Last Thursday, we took the skill guys up to Enterprise, and we competed in a big 7-on-7 tournament that they hosted. There were teams from us, Mosley, Niceville, were the Florida teams there, and there was a bunch of schools from Alabama. Bainbridge, Georgia was there, schools from Georgia, and kids competed well. We made it to the semifinals of the tournament, and came up short in the semifinals, but the kids competed hard. And then we're actually lifting this week, and then we got next week off, and we decided to give the kids off the week after the 4th this year since it fell on a Saturday. And And then we're going out to Bozeman on July the 22nd for a padded FCA camp. It's going to be us, Mosley, Booker T. Washington, Navarre, and Milton and Mariana. And that'll be a padded 11 on 11. You know, it's more thud. You know, you're trying to get the physical part in, but you're trying to stay up, keep people off the ground, keep your guys. You know, you don't want anybody getting injured in a thing like that, but you want to get a chance to see some quasi live, get some live reps in your team stuff. So we're pretty excited about that.
I believe it's a relatively new thing, these padded camps where they allow some contact, but like the coach said, you don't want, real serious contact because heaven forbid you get kids hurt during the summer. It's risky enough when you start in August and then that contact happens in the second week of fall practice. You certainly don't want kids getting hurt during the summer, but more and more specialized camps, and I think that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, without question, and especially the fact that they're not just playing teams from Florida. They're getting to play teams, like you said, from Georgia, Alabama, and just across the South. So awesome to be able to see different types of teams play different styles of football before you ultimately come and play in the regular season.
Seems just like a few weeks ago we wrapped up spring practice on the high school level. Now we're into the summer season, but given the fact that things really cranked back up in early August, I asked Coach Brown if he feels like, given how not compressed isn't the right word, but I asked him, does it feel like the months of June and July really fly by with August looming?
Seems like over the last 4 or 5 years, man, it seems like the summer goes really really fast. You know what I mean? You're getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, to get to school at 8 o'clock, just like you do during the school year. And so it's almost like it's just a continuation, you know what I mean? Which is one of the reasons we go in the mornings, because we want the kids to stay in the habit of getting up and getting ready for school and being on time, kind of stay in a routine. But yeah, I mean, it seems like every year it gets a little bit, it seems like the summer goes a little bit faster, and you turn around. JJ and I were talking, going to workouts this morning. Like, he was like, Dad, he said, it's 4th of July week. And I was like, yeah, buddy. I said, that's crazy. You know what I mean? It just seems like we just finished football season. You know what I mean? But it really seems like from the end of football season until the next season, it seems like every year it gets a little bit shorter and goes by a little bit faster. And I'm sure it probably because I'm getting old. I'm sure.
I feel you, Coach. It does seem like the seasons go faster and are more on top of each other. And I think that is a facet of us getting older.
I mean, Scott, I'm just a little younger than you, so yeah.
A lot younger.
I'm dealing with that just a little bit myself, without question. But like a lot of other teams, Scott, that are in the FHSA right now have dealt with a lot of movement in the classifications, with a lot of things that have happened over this offseason that we've talked about in detail throughout some of our podcast episodes so far. Since the high school football season ended, the classifications have really jumbled up. And for Bay, they're going to be in a bigger district this coming season in 3A District 1. They're no longer just alongside 2 other teams between, I believe that was Pensacola and West Florida.
Yep.
Now they also add in South Walton and Pine Forest to have a very tough.
So a 6-team district.
Exactly. So they go from a 3-team district, which I'm not going to say it's easier, but it definitely is a little easier to be able to win that district to a 6-team district. So we asked Coach Brown a little bit about what is so different about this new district.
I think the big thing for us is, going from a 3-team district to a 6-team district. You know what I mean? Adding those extra district games. You add in Pine Forest, and you add in South Walton, and that's a whole different animal. You know what I mean? Both of those schools are always year in and year out really, really good. Both have great coaching staffs, good football players. So just having that extra, this added few games is kind of different. You know what I mean? But it's a good type of different. It made scheduling a little bit easier. You didn't have to go out and you didn't have to necessarily go out and find those games. You got those games. But it puts a little bit of it makes those wins even more. Even more important, because the last thing you want to do now, the chances you were going to get in a 3-way shootout in a 3-team district was almost impossible. But now, you want to go out there and win those games. So you set yourself up at the end of the season to possibly get a home playoff game.
Yeah, the key in a 6-team district, Hayden, you get 5 district games. Try to go 4-1, and you're probably going to win that district. Everyone else is going to go 3-2, or if another team there is 4-1, you hope to, when you end up tied with another team, you hope you won that head-to-head, if at all possible. But when I first got into the sportscasting business, it was very easy to kind of determine who the playoff teams were because everybody was in a district. It was rare to have even a 4-team district. Most everybody was at the minimum 4 teams, but 5 or 6-team districts. You would win your district, and that was it. There were more districts, but you knew if you won your district, you took care of business in that district, you were going to the state playoffs. And then eventually they expanded it to district champs and district runners up, and that was a good way to do it too because you get those 5 games, you tend to believe they're equal teams in terms of the enrollment and the amount of players. When you look across the sideline, 2, 3A teams, they're both going to have maybe 40 to 45 players. It's not going to be one team with 22 kids and another team with 45 or 50. In the case of South Walton, it might even be more, maybe 55 or so I kind of like it that way. I wish this thing about rankings and strength of schedule and all that and using computers to determine playoff teams, I don't know. That's just something squirrely about it. I kind of like this. And Coach Brown and Coach Tiza at South Walton, they know, hey, handle my business in the district. Take it out of everybody else's hands and whether or not we get a playoff berth.
Scott, I know for a fact you are not the only one that has that same mindset. I know a lot of other high school coaches feel the same exact way. And I do think we're slowly maybe going a little bit back to that with a little bit more districts, like you said, with more teams in it. You're no longer having some of these 3-team districts. Now they are upwards of 4, 5, 6 teams in that district. So I like the direction that they're starting to go, but for the Bay High Tornadoes, again, Scott, I mean, this is going to be definitely a critical year for them to see if they can continue to capitalize off the success that they had last year and maybe see if they can get something continued.
As Coach Brown put it, Bay High always has dudes, dudes that can run, dudes that can catch the ball. And
Yes.
John DeVos at quarterback, that'll be big spikes to fill with Xavier Morgan. But John's has had a lot of snaps.
Yes, especially ever since his freshman year.
Yeah, so he's been in and out on the field. So it'll be interesting to see that. We certainly thank Coach Brown for his time sitting down with us to talk about his team summer program and what's ahead this coming fall. We appreciate that very much. So that'll do it for this edition of 7 Plus Sports Talk presented by Bill Bird Kia. For Hayden, I'm Scott. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.